First and foremost, I would like to thank Lobby for giving me the opportunity to make a comeback and say a few words. I don't even know how the title came about, because it is such the refugees' perspective. It is such a rich subject. It is something that, being a refugee, of course, as Theo said, I feel very passionate about. I don't know how long I've got, Theo. Me being me, I will speak from my heart. I know there are distinguished speakers after me, and although Kostas was first, I chose to go first because I'm covering the human side of things and the human element, and I know these guys will cover with much more in-depth the academic and legal side or perspective of the Cyprus issue. The refugee's perspective. What is the role of the refugee? What are the feelings, the memories of a refugee? What are the expectations? How a refugee views the development? What are the refugees' dreams, aspirations, expectations, and so forth? I believe I share all these feelings with so many other compatriots in Cyprus. I chose to, cover my side of the story, and I will tell you my side of the story, and I say that to my children, because I'd like them to know what's happening in Cyprus, and I hope we all tell our own story to our children, our grandchildren, because it is important that our feelings, our memories, and all that I just said are passed on. My story started in July 1974. All the events and leading up to the despicable and outrageous coup, the fear, the uncertainty, all those feelings that we had during that time. And I was no different. I was a teenager, naive, and all of a sudden caught up in this major life-changing experience. The first invasion followed in July 1974. The first refugees from Karinia, Lapithos and Garabas and surrounding areas started arriving in Agios Ambrosios. It was the first the first taste of a state to come. People arrived in droves, on lorries, cars, whatever they could find, bringing more fear with their stories, their own personal experiences, what was happening to them by the Turkish advancing army, and so forth, and so forth. The story for Agios Ambrosios and my personal journey started on 13th of August 1974. On 13th of August, around about midnight, I heard the news, and it's still so vivid in my mind what I heard at the negotiations. I think it was in Zurich, wasn't it? In Zurich? In Geneva, they broke down, there was no agreement, and I knew at that time that that night was probably, well, in fact I was 100% sure it was my last night in my home, in my bed, where my beloved Ios Ambrosius. I got up from my bed and I collected some material, some family mementos. In fact, I've upgraded my bag. This is my carrier bag. Some of you may remember Jet, the company in Cyprus. This is my carrier bag, where I put in the family photos, some jewelry of my late father, some certificates, some medals that I won with pride in the Ios Ambrosios arena, and above all the family's title deeds. I did not know at that time why I did that. I had no idea. But that carrier bag was with me every day of my life, from refugee camp to refugee camp, and finally to London. I was not to know at that time that those title deeds would become the beginning of a lifelong struggle. But I knew, I always knew, that in this bag I had what belonged to me. I had my home, I had my land, I had what was taken away from me by force. And all those feelings that I had as an innocent refugee, as an innocent young man, feelings that this will not happen, that the powerful of the world will not allow this to happen, all those feelings that I had that justice will prevail, slowly and gradually disappeared. But with this carrier bag became determination, became fighting spirit to regain what was mine. Fast forward, actually before the fast forward, because these are the times where we should commemorate, permit me to share with you another little story that I read a couple of weeks ago and almost brought tears to my eyes. And because I think it goes with what I want to say, the importance of one's home and the importance of one's right to be free. I read in this book, let me just find it, that on 24th July in Gerinia, remember that it was 24th July, 4 days after the invasion, there were people still fighting. There were young Cypriot soldiers giving it all, fighting for freedom. And Agasi Praxandros, some of you may know, some of us again took part in athletics there and played our football there. It was a scene of fierce fighting. And in one house, east of the stadium, there was a pocket of resistance. And the Turks surrounded it with heavy artillery, guns, tanks, and they gave the ultimatum to them to surrender. In fact, they sent one of their prisoners of war, one of the captives, they had loads of them, and they sent him, and they told him, ask them to surrender, otherwise we will obliterate them. His prisoner's name was Therapon Constantino. Therapon went forward, and after a lot of negotiation, he was allowed to go in. And he asked them, of course, he passed the message from the Turks. And all of them, according to the book, almost unanimously told him, go and tell them that we will not do them this favor. Δεν πρόκειται να τους κάνουμε το χατήρι. Δεν πρόκειται να παραδοθούμε. We will never surrender. And if these dogs allow any one of you to survive, remember us. Tell the world that here in this house, 14 Greeks died for freedom.